Hi, my name is Benjamin. I'm 9 years sober. I continue every day to look to help others, to give back to those who have helped me, and to the community that's given me everything back into my life.
I'm Heather Champion. I'm a licensed mental health counselor with a private practice. I met Ben while working at an outpatient treatment center called The Retreat that's not here anymore. We've maintained our friendship since then and enjoy taking time to talk about therapy and our lives as champions.
Disclaimer: the content of this video is intended for informational use only. It is in no way intended as a replacement for medical or psychological advice. Should you have a medical or psychological issue, please consult with a medical professional. Hey, everybody, it is the Real Champions podcast. This is season 2, and I believe episode 3. I am Heather Champion.
I'm Benjamin.
And today we don't have anything specific we want to talk about, but I did have an announcement. I know earlier in the season I had said that I applied for a doctoral program. I'm just letting everybody know I didn't get in. I literally just found out about 10 minutes ago. And Ben and I were just chit-chatting about that. And we were thinking maybe we could talk about disappointments because you apply for a doctoral program. I've applied, I think this was my fourth doctoral program that I applied for. They invited me to come back next year instead of starting in 26 to start in 27, which, you know what, that was a disappointment for me. I think that was the biggest disappointment because if I got in and started in 2026, I would be starting right around my 50th birthday. And I thought, wouldn't that be so cool to say that I started my doctoral program, at 50, like right at my 50th birthday, just because I started kindergarten on my fifth birthday. Uh, but unfortunately, that's not going to be happening. I was also hoping like student loan crap that's going on out there that my student loan program has been shut down and now I have to apply for a new one. And I thought, well, if I'm going to school, my student loans are going to get deferred anyway, and I won't have to get caught up on all this BS. However, apparently that's not going to be happening, and I'm going to have to focus and deal with it. But in any event, yeah, I was super disappointed I didn't get in. I was really looking forward to starting school in the fall, and working on my doctorate, but maybe next year.
But with everything in life, we get a good chance to learn from things and grow from things. And who knows what a year can change? Who knows what a year of knowledge is going to get you or where you want to be in life in a year? I think sometimes with disappointment, it gives us a chance to step back and really analyze if that's the thing we truly wanted, or if it will give us more time to really embrace the things we were chasing after to begin with.
Yeah, I always feel like if something didn't work out the way you wanted it to, there's a reason why. And I was like wondering, well, how can I really handle going back to school? And am I rushing into things and doing them too quickly? Maybe there's other things that I could be focusing on, and maybe something more important is going to come up. For doing a doctor, like I just finished doing a training on learning how to do psychological testing and getting certified so that I could, purchase. You have to have a certain level of education in order to purchase psychological tests so that you can administer them. And you have to prove to the testing companies, like a PAI is one of them, you have to like send them your credentials so that they know that you are credentialed enough to do those tests. And there's different levels of credentialing that someone with a master's degree like me could do. And there's ones that people with a bachelor's and people with less than a bachelor's can do. But then there's others that are doctoral and higher. So with this extra certification, I can do the ones for doctorates now. And that was a lot of work getting that done. It was a lot of hard work. And I kept thinking while I was doing it, I'm like, this might be what it's like to do my doctorate. And this is the amount of extra work I'm going to have to do.
It was going to be a big undertaking, regardless when you did it, it was going to be a big undertaking. But I think the really cool thing with you is you did this 4 times and you're still going after it. You didn't get, you know what I mean? I just think, especially for a lot of us who are in recovery, that's a big lesson is, some things aren't going to work out, but I'm sure if you revisit over those 4 times you tried before and broke apart that next year, you did a lot of different things you didn't think you would do in those years.
Mhm.
So sometimes it's, just gotta look back and remember that you might not got what you wanted, but like you said, maybe it's leading for something bigger, or you really get time to focus on the things that maybe you're avoiding focusing on, looking towards that other goal you're working on.
Mhm. Yeah.
Good reset, I think.
Yeah. And with all those other programs, it was very clear after the fact that it was never going to work out. That what really wasn't the right program for me and that I needed to keep looking. The one that I did apply to did seem like the right one. Unfortunately, I guess I wasn't right for them, or at least not right for them today. That they probably have plans in the future that I would be a better fit for.
And
So,
that's always the hope is in the future it's going to work the way it's supposed to. What can I do today moving to the future to ensure that I am the best version of myself for that time frame?
yeah,
I think it's a new adventure. Gives you something new to fight towards, look
yeah,
forward to. And
yeah,
it's exciting.
yeah. So, well, we'll see what new projects I decide to take on here at the practice instead.
I'm always intrigued by that.
Because there's always something.
There is.
Apparently, there's always something that I've got cooking up. I would love to start bringing interns in to work here. And one of the other things that I really wanted to do, and maybe I'll do it regardless of the fact that I went back to school, try to get some interns in here and create a nonprofit to help pay for services so that people that have difficulty, and that's one of the big things I think that I have always wanted to do was to
Mhm.
build some sort of a nonprofit to help supplement the cost of therapy for people. Because I do know that I've lost a lot of people over the past, I want to say 3 to 6 months with the changes in the insurance regulations out there at the federal level. A lot of people's co-pays went up, their deductibles went up, and with that, they can't afford it anymore. I know I was working with one gentleman. He had come in and he had never really used his insurance before, so he wasn't sure what. And it took his insurance company takes about 3 to 4 weeks to respond once I send the first claim. After that, it takes about 2 to 3 weeks to get paid. So typically, I'll get like 3 payments in one. Because it has taken them 3 to 4 weeks to go through. And when that comes in, that's when they tell me what the copay is going to be. It was a $75 copay.
Mm.
He was not expecting that whatsoever. And I reached out to him and I said, "Hey, you have a $75 copay. So you have 4 sessions at $75. That's going to be 300." And he was like, "I can't do that."
Yeah.
So I was like, well, we'll work it out. Like if you want to do like some sort of a payment plan or whatever. He wasn't able to come back because he just couldn't afford the $75 for a session. He's like, what's the insurance really covering? And at that point, they're covering like $35,
Yeah.
um, which that's not a whole lot, unfortunately, for this poor guy. So he had to drop out. Um, and he hasn't come back. Now, if I had some sort of a nonprofit that could help him offset some of that cost and get it down a little bit, maybe split it 50-50, like 40, what is it? 42.50 for, bring it down to like 42.50 for him. Like the nonprofit covers up with the other $42. That would be, he would be able to continue.
And the hardest thing with that is people get scared away from therapy then. That's where that whole it's all about money comes in. And it's really unfortunate because you're right. There's a lot of really good people. Myself, I've gotten into it too.
Mhm.
With insurance and everything. Went back to therapy and after time it just caught up where other bills came into play. It's hard and it unless you're somebody like myself who just happens to work in this field, it's really hard to get back into therapy with that disappointment because it does put in your mind that it's all about the money.
Mhm.
When reality is people like you and I behind the scenes, we hate that it's all about the money. We hate that has to come in the way of people getting the help they deserve because the world will be a better place if more people got the help and were be able to be their full selves. It's a hard disappointment to deal with in life is not having the funds to do things that could help you in life.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. It's unfortunate. It's really sad when I see that happen where somebody is making progress, they're doing well, and then like the bills hit them and they're like, I can't afford this. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that, guys.
Sometimes real life comes into play. But
Mhm.
I think what we were talking about with disappointments, I think reality is it's uncomfortable even talking about disappointments because we all want to avoid having to think about them and things coming up in life. I know for myself, I got to probably move in the next year. And I really want to sit in my shit and pretend the world's all against me and that, I should be further in life than I am. Well, what I really recognized last night and today is I just got to make a plan and make things happen. I got to, if I want to make the changes to see where I'm going to be in a year, I have to start implementing the changes today so that when the time comes to move, it's not scary. It's okay, I'm been prepared for this.
Mhm.
But it is disappointing having to move. It's disappointing having to change your life around a little bit. But the best way I'm preparing for it is being brutally honest with myself, understanding like, hey, if I get to keep where I'm living, great. That will be a great outcome. But I can't sit and think that's going to be the outcome. I have to do the work to make sure if that is the outcome, life is perfect. But if it's not, that I'm prepared and ready to deal with whatever may come next.
Mhm.
And for me, a lot of that preparedness is just being open and honest with my friends. I texted my best friend this morning, just like, hey, today's the day of change. Today's where we start to change. And all he was is just supportive, super supportive, reassuring. That the day I do have to move, there's gonna be hundreds of people there to help me move. That I don't have to worry about that. And even he said, he's like, you're starting this early. I said, but if I don't start it now, that idea of people are gonna be there is just gonna be a hypothetical in my mind.
Mhm.
Already having a year out that you already said it's gonna be there helps me already know I'm safe in a year's time.
Mhm.
I think in life we handle disappointments differently for each occasion. And I think it's incumbent upon us, person dealing with the disappointment, to know who to turn to, who to open up to, and who's the best one to deal with that disappointment.
But I think that also it's important to normalize that feeling, right? And what I mean by normalize is like, think about how normal your reaction is, right? Like, struggling with rent right now is not an abnormal thing. It's very, very normal. And most people that I know that are single, I'm one of the few that I know that haven't had to get to this point, have had roommates or have had to scale back where they live because rents are crazy expensive and the rest of life is very, very expensive. And it's like, well, technically, like the financial guide will tell you that your living expenses, meaning rent, should only be 1/4 of your take home. That's after taxes, right? So if you're making $4,000 a month, then your rent should be no more than $1,000 a month. How many people out there can find a nice place to live for $1,000 a month? Because $4,000 a month take home is pretty normal for most people, right? That's pretty
Mhm.
average. But not many of us can find a place to live for $1,000 a month. I know like my first place that I rented in down in Palm Beach County was 1,500 a month. And I
Mm.
was not making, I wasn't taking home $4,000 a month at that point in time. I know through majority of my life, my rent has taken up 50 to 75% of my take-home income.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it's very hard to get ahead when that's the case. But unfortunately, that's the world we're living in.
And what I've learned in time is my parents are boomers. So this conversation over the years has transformed from back when I was just got sober and I could afford living in a halfway house working at a call center,
Mhm.
where those conversations are more realistic of save up better, do better in this financial way. Now I've gone in these conversations with my parents with starting it off with, I don't need your advice from 60 years ago. I need you to be relevant to today. And
Mhm.
if we can have that conversation, if you cannot think outside of the box you came from, then we can't have this conversation because it's not going to go anywhere. And it's taken some time for them, and I've sent them, news articles of this is what I deal with in my real world,
Mhm.
not the world you pretend to live in. And it's helped us have these conversations where it's more now of an understanding, because that is somewhere where I do feel a disappointment that I'm not further off.
Mhm.
But then I have the realistic conversation with my friends who, some make a little more than I, but sometimes I have to be reminded that they struggle too. And one of my best friends always reminds me of that is, Ben, yeah, I might make 100,000, but I have X, Y, and Z you don't have.
Mhm.
But I think for a lot of us, we look at, oh, well, you make that much, so you're fine.
Mhm.
Um, and
Yeah.
something I've learned is not be disappointed just because my friend makes more than me doesn't mean I'm in my friend's shoes and know the bills he's paying.
Mhm.
Um, because that's has stopped a lot of disappointment within myself that I put on myself. Oh, I'm not making as much as so and so who went to school. Maybe I should have went to school.
Mhm.
Reality is, and my one best friend said this, he's Ben, you don't understand how much my tuition bills are.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh yeah, that's true. I don't know that.
No.
And that helps me kind of get over that disappointment of, okay, I just chose a different path in life. I have my own bills that I accrued because of my own path.
Right. And it's like, we all have a battle that we're fighting that no one else knows about, right? And so I remember I told my mom at the end of last year how much the practice brought in. And she's like, oh, that's a lot. I said, my, yeah, but $46,000 of that was expenses. And then I pay myself $1,000 a week. So that's $52,000 a year that I'm making. Wait a second. When you subtract $52,000, when you add those two numbers together, the 46,000 in expenses, the 52,000 and just me and what I need to survive to pay my mortgage and my utilities and all that stuff, we're coming to a number that's bigger than what I actually brought in for last year. So I operated at a loss. But unfortunately, I wasn't set up properly as a company so that I could write off the loss. So it looks like I actually made $52,000 of $50,000. Sorry, not 52. It was a difference of 2 grand um, of profit. So I'm being taxed on $52,000 of profit instead of
Mm,
two
loss.
thousand dollars of a loss. So I wasn't taxed probably. So yeah, my so the accountant that I hired helped me switch over to an S corp, and now I pay myself as a W-2 employee, and well, that's disappointing. It's like, oh my God. Yeah, I used to pay myself $1,000 a week for doing what I do, which actually comes out to be like $40 an hour I make, which is very low for somebody with two master's degrees. But in any event, like now it's doing it like automatically taking out the taxes and everything. So I actually only get like 870 something dollars in my paycheck because the taxes are coming out. And I'm like, oh, this is painful. Like that's like over $200 difference between what I used to pay myself and what I am currently paying myself. Plus, on top of that, like there's processing fees and all these other fees that are coming out of my business account. So more money is coming out of my business account than what I'm getting paid. This is very disappointing. And then, of course, my mortgage amount came down because I got finally got the what do you call it homestead on my taxes here because
Yep.
they were able to transfer it from Palm Beach up here to this new house. And so my taxes went down enormously. My mortgage went down by $300 a month. I was
Oh,
paying
wow.
it direct pay through my bank, And I kept changing it so that it was this lower amount. Well, guess what amount went out last weekend for the first? The original amount, $300 higher.
Oh,
So when I sat there and looked at my budget and I was like, oh my God, I have a negative balance, number one, in my checking account. I am too old. I'm 49 and a half. I should not have a negative balance in my checking account, number one. Number two, now I can't pay any of my bills this week because that extra $300 was going to count for, a good chunk of what I was going to be paying. And now what do I got to do? I got to figure this stuff out. And I went back to my bank website and I fixed it. And hopefully now it will not go back to that other amount. Although I have paid $600 extra in principal on my mortgage this year so far. So, there's a silver lining there that might help me out further on down the line. You never know.
man.
Never know.
But one thing I can take out of today's session with your disappointment is it helps me remember that, this is where you and I first started, is you wanting to do all these school things, you wanting to do these different programs. That's how our friendship really started, is you've always been the one who's led me in the pact of come up with creative ideas and see what happens.
Mhm.
So what I've realized, and even just this short session with us, is through your disappointment, it gives me something to chase after. Being a good friend to you is somebody who's going to push you to keep doing this because it pushes me to keep doing whatever crazy ideas I have. Because as long as somebody I know who has a brain like you do is willing to go through those disappointments and doesn't look at it as a disappointment, it reminds me of, okay, you can do that too.
Mhm.
So I think you take people's disappointments, you learn from their disappointment, you keep cheering them on because through your disappointments, our friendship has grown over the years. From
Yeah.
you doing all these odds and end things, we've stayed in contact because you're not afraid of one of those things not working. You're willing to do something next. I just think to wrap this all up is through your disappointment, it helped our friendship grow
Mhm.
because it allowed me to realize, yeah, somebody that smart might not do exactly what they want, but they're willing to try again.
Yeah.
And that gives me hope.
Well, I'm glad my failures give you hope, sweetie.
Teamwork, what champions do.
Yeah, that's what champions do, right? Well, I guess that's it for today. So thank you everybody for listening and watching, and we will be back in another 2 weeks. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Adios.
Real Champions Podcast, Season 2, Episode 3, Disappointment. What does it mean to be a champion when that's your name? The Real Champions Podcast is co-hosted by Heather Champion and Benjamin Champion. It's edited by Heather Champion. Produced by Maitri Counseling Services, all rights reserved. Questions or comments can be referred to Heather at Maitri Therapy, MAITRI-therapy.com.
You are not alone. Remember, if you or someone you know is struggling with thoughts of suicide, please call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-TALK. For local help, dial 211 on your phone to be connected to resources in your area. If you experience mental health or substance abuse issues, please call the National Alliance or Mental Health or NAMNI at 1-800-950-NAMNI, or in a crisis, text NAMI, NAMI, to 741-741. Check out the NAMNI website, nami.org, for additional resources.